yeah. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 55 of the Sailor Jerry podcast. My name is Matt Cothran. I am still your host. Today is Thursday, February 9th, 2023. And yes, you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen. Sailor Jerry Spice Drum is still made the old school way, 92 proof, bold and smooth as hell. I hope everybody's doing great out there. We are into February, which is my birthday month. It's Black History Month. It's Valentine's Day. It's short but sweet. It's my favorite month of the year, and I'm just feeling a little hyper emotional, if I'm being honest, okay? I just wanted to give a big shout out to all of our listeners, all you freaks watching on YouTube. I appreciate you guys, love you guys. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe to it. If you're watching on YouTube, don't lurk in the dark, okay? Leave a comment, leave a message. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're eating for dinner. Let me know what you're listening to. Whatever. Just give me something. You know what I'm talking about? For my birthday. Do it for my birthday. That's all I want. All I want for my birthday is a couple of YouTube comments. Okay? So we appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for being down with us for 55 episodes, because obviously we are nothing without you. That's one thing I know from being in a band. Okay? The audience, the fans, very, very important. Okay? So thank you guys very much out there for listening and for watching. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Very stoked to have the bi-weekly opportunity to just spill my guts, talk with some people about music, life, art, anything under the rainbow. So a big shout out to Sailor Jerry for being the vehicle and letting me drive. You know what I'm saying? It's time for episode 55. Kat Moss is the badass front woman for your new favorite hardcore band, Scowl. In this episode, we catch up with Kat to discuss the exciting year that lays ahead for both her and the band. I'm talking about the release of their highly anticipated new EP, Psychic Dance Routine. I'm talking about the band playing Coachella. I'm talking about the band setting off circle pits and stage dives all over the world. Of course, we look back at the history of the band as well. We get some insight into Kat's creative influences and also her take on being a female role model in a mostly male-dominated scene. This is an awesome episode. Scowl is a ripping band, and Kat is an incredible artist. So sit back, relax, pour yourself some Sailor Jerry, and let's go! Yo, what's up, Kat?
How you doing? Sorry, I'm just like making sure everything's set up. My mic is all on. We're good.
No, you're all good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the Sailor Jerry podcast.
Yeah.
Right on. You guys just got back from Disturbing the Peace, right?
Yeah, Baltimore was a good time.
Yeah, it always is. It always is. How was the show? How was the fest?
It was a great time. It was kind of insane. It was the first show of the year, and like for Scowl, of course. And then I think it was a lot of our friends' bands' first show, and everyone was just like had this vibe. Everyone was so excited, and the crowd was insane. And of course, like seeing Trapped Under Ice was absolutely nuts. It was so violent, but it was all in good fun. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be a little bit more insane and intense, but it was just fun. There was a lot of craziness. Backstage was nuts. The whole thing was
Yeah,
crazy.
I bet. And there was, I'm glad. I don't know, what happened to Justice, but I heard he
Yeah.
went through some shit that day.
Yeah.
And he's a great front man. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
And TUI is a great band. So I know that must have been cool. And Baltimore too, for people out there who don't know about Baltimore, it is a fucking awesome place for hardcore, for punk rock. Bronx used to play this place called the Auto Bar out there that's still around.
Yep.
And
Love the Auto Bar.
yeah, it's just a dope spot. So I'm glad you guys had a good time. Before we get into the new song, before we get into the new EP, which is incredible, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I know there's a lot of listeners out there that might not be too familiar with the band. So if it's cool, I just want to do a little bit of history on the band.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on. Right, you guys started in 2019, right?
Yeah. Not too long ago.
You're pretty fresh, which is dope. But how did the band come together?
It was, I mean, the classic, I want to start a band. I don't know, and I told Malachi, who plays guitar, and he kind of called me on my bluff. He was like, "Oh, you want to start a band? Okay." And he picked up guitar, and our friend Cole, who has been playing in bands with Malachi for a while, he drums. So they just started writing these punk songs, and within about a month and a half or so, we were recording our demo. I wrote all the lyrics and obviously did all the vocals, but they didn't really hear much of my vocals until we recorded that demo, because I was pretty shy about it.
Yeah.
But it all worked out. And our first two shows, we had fill-ins on bass because we didn't really have a concrete bassist yet. Our friend Tim filled in on bass. He plays in Drain, which is another hardcore band from Santa Cruz. That's amazing. And then our first little run of shows was in California, and that was probably a month after we put out our demo. So we got on the road pretty fast. And we still had a fill-in for that run also. And that was just another homie from Santa Cruz who just hopped in with us and played bass on these punk songs. It was pretty easy. And then by summer we found Bailey, who's now our bassist. And Bailey just adds so much to the band. I can't imagine not having Bailey there. Not only for playing bass purposes, but also just we get into so much shenanigans. It's awesome.
Yeah, Bailey's good people for sure.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And, so going back a little bit further for you personally, when did music kind of start, introducing itself into your world?
It took a while. I always loved music. I was always attracted to kind of the alternative or the punk style. And I never really knew what it was until a little bit later into my teens. For me, it began in middle school. It was popular to kind of be into that Warped Tour, scene kid stuff. Yeah. So of course, I got into that, and it's pretty funny. One day I'm going to post photos from those phases, but as of right now, those are secret. It was crazy, but yeah. So for most of my teen years, it was, pop punk and metalcore, and I have an appreciation for it looking back, but I'm glad I found punk, and it just took me a little bit longer to dive a little bit deeper. And but when I did, it was I had a friend who kind of helped introduce it to me. I had a couple friends I started making around 17, and they were like, "Here, check this out." And it was, anything from Dead Kennedys to the Cramps to Bikini Kill to just the whole thing. So it was from 70s to 90s, and I just kind of started picking out what I liked and finding influence, and I liked the harder stuff. I still wanted that metal kind of vibe, but but I loved the punk. There was nothing like that, and that's how hardcore came about. I found that I was like, oh, that's what hardcore is. It's this force, and from then on I was just like, well, this is everything to me. This is my life now. And I am lucky that I've made it such a big part of my life because I love it so much now. So,
Yeah, that's dope. And that's such a cool time when you know, especially when you jump into like punk, hardcore all at once and you
yeah.
have, you know, multiple generations of records and bands and artists and you're just like, oh my God, you know, there's just so many cool, you know, just like you're talking
Yeah.
about Crampstead, Kennedy's, just those two right there.
Yeah.
They're, you know, they're mind blowing, you know,
Huge.
and it's so cool to have that kind of door be kicked open, you
Yeah.
know, by music and by art. And so how, okay, so you said joking around, you want to start a band, you want to pick up a
Yeah.
microphone. What what was leading into that? Because it wasn't just one day you woke up
Yeah.
and decided it. You had it. You were you going to shows at all, and you kind of
Oh,
picked
yeah.
up on like live energy, and you were like
Yeah.
maybe like how did that kind of start to happen for you?
So I started going to DIY shows right around when I was like 17, 18. I started making friends who were into the same music as me, and I was making friends at concerts. So I would see, pop punk bands like the Wonder Years or the Story So Far, or I'd see metalcore bands like the Amity Affliction or like A Day to Remember, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. And I would make friends at those shows, and we would kind of connect, and we go to Warped Tour together. And there was about like a year of kind of doing that, and then some of the friends I made going to those shows were going to college. And one of my really good friends, his name's Trevor, he started going to college at Chico State, which is more Northern California. And he started telling me about, he was going to these local shows. And I was like, oh, really? Local shows? That's really cool. And they were like, small shows held in like cafes or
yeah,
in
yeah.
people's basements, house shows. And I was like, wow, I really want to go. And so I started driving to Chico for my weekends and like skating, and I was going to these basement shows, and it was like bands that were anywhere from like noise black metal bands to like straight edge hardcore bands.
Yeah.
And I started making friends with a lot of the people in the scene. And it was a smaller scene, but it was so cool because it felt like I was kind of living out my little SLC punk like dreams.
Yeah.
It felt really cool. And I was getting to know all these people, and bands were coming through that were from Santa Cruz or different parts of the Bay Area. So one of the first bands that like kind of got me like really sold on Bay Area hardcore and wanting to come around and really get involved was Drain. And Drain they hadn't even had an LP out yet. They had, I think, they had 3 EPs out, but one of them they don't have available to listen to anymore, which totally get it. I don't want my demo to be out there, but it is. So, but I remember I heard about Drain. I heard about their crazy shows. Kids were crowd surfing on boogie boards, and I was like, dude, I have to be there. I have got to see that. So, Drain played in Sacramento, where I lived, at the Cafe Colonial, which is like a small venue, just spray painted all over the walls, tags, and it's just very punk. And I didn't know anyone at the show. And around this time, I kind of started going to shows at Gilman and shows in the city, like alone. I would just go do it. I was terrified. It was so intimidating, but I was going to do it because I really liked going to these shows. I really liked hardcore, and I just wanted to be a part of it, even if that just meant like taking the day off work and driving to the city and going to that show. Yeah. So I was doing that, and I kind of struggled in the beginning. I thought I just wasn't going to make friends because everyone who goes to hardcore shows is so terrifying when you don't know anyone. I remember like bumming cigarettes off people at Gilman and just like feeling like, wow, I know I have to be here, but I do not feel like I belong yet. But I saw Drain, and I met Sammy, and he remembered me after that, and that really stuck with me. I met Malachi because Malachi's friends with Sammy and all the dudes in Drain, and Malachi plays guitar in Scowl now. But the weird thing about Malachi is that he actually went to the same high school as me, and he had classes with my older sister, so I kind of knew who he was. he kind of knew who I was, but we had never interacted.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I know you, but I don't want to be weird right now. And so we just got to know each other. And now, years later, we're dating. We have this band together. It's really cool. We have a really cool life together. But when I met him, it kind of changed a lot because he's extremely social. He knows everyone. He books shows. He books everyone's band's first show. And, so he was able to introduce me to a lot of really cool people who are now in my life. And I couldn't imagine my life without them, and Malachi really did that for me. And I'm really grateful. And so, fast forward a year or two, I moved to Santa Cruz. I start going to shows all the time here. I'm not in a band, but Malachi's playing in a band called Jawstruck with Cole, who drums in Scowl. And I love Jawstruck. They're such a cool band. And I went on my first tour ever I just went on tour with them. I just was hanging out. I was just there for the ride. Go?
Where were the dates at? Was it up the coast or where was it?
Yeah, just the coast. It was just California. So I think it was Fresno. I think there was LA and San Diego. And there was a Bay Area date. And there might have been like a Sacramento date. But it was not much. But it changed my life. I was like, wow, I need to come back. Oh, they played Vegas also. That's what it is. But yeah, I needed to come back. I loved it so much. And at that point, that's when I kind of started to open up and be like, yeah, I do want to start a band. But before that, I was trying to start a zine. I was taking photos. I was just doing anything I can to like be involved. I remember I took some photos of Gulch at one of their earlier shows, and I just did this cut and paste thing, and they ended up using it for their promo tape cover. And I was like, no way. Like, and those are my friends, but I still looked up to them because they were in a band, and that was really cool. And I'd always wanted to be in a band. I'd always wanted to have that opportunity, but I was pretty terrified. So when I finally told Malachi, he was like, okay, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's, and the rest is kind of history
up
until then.
Dope. No, that's dope. It's like a gradual thing. And it's like, what's great about punk and hardcore too, is it all starts with, it goes a little bit beyond the music because it's more of a scene, and you want to be involved and you want to, contribute, and you going on the road and getting a little taste of that too. And has Scowl ever played Gilman?
No.
Yeah, Bronx has never played Gilman either. I can't fucking believe it.
I'm so mad about it because that's always been something I've like wanted to do. Like that's a dream. That's a bucket list thing,
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And for listeners out there, so 924 Gilman is like this legendary punk venue in Berkeley, or is it Berkeley or Oakland?
Berkeley. I mean, Berkeley and Oakland are kind of like this, they're very pretty much the same, not the same, but very close.
Yeah, but it's this incredibly famous, punk venue, and basically, it kind of got its head start from Operation Ivy days and early Rancid days, and so many bands have gone through there. They used to have this thing, or if you were signed to a major label, you couldn't play there. If you there's so many punk rules about the place, but it's a legendary venue, and we've never been able to play it. Hopefully one day we'll make it happen. But Scowl's got to play Gilman.
Well, that's been such a big goal for me personally. Like when the band started, like I didn't have a lot of goals with this band. I was just happy to do it.
Yeah.
And the goals were to play with Drain. Play Sound and Fury, which was like the biggest one. That was like the top of the tier gold medal like goal. And then playing Gilman, and then maybe like opening for Bikini Kill. That's like one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Still haven't done that, but who knows?
Put it out there.
But yeah, Gilman, I think the timing just hasn't worked out yet, where we started to get pretty busy right when quarantine hit with the pandemic. And I think Gilman shows were really popping up until then. And then after that, Gilman has been very, very cautious with COVID stuff going on. And I respect them, I respect that. So it just hasn't worked out yet.
It will definitely happen. It'll definitely happen. Going into, you talked briefly about you know, the band really hearing your voice the first
Yeah.
time you guys recorded. And that's so cool to me
Yeah.
because I had a kind of a similar experience. And, you know, for yourself too, like you're saying, just kind of getting into, you know, being a singer,
Yeah.
being the front woman of a band, writing lyrics, all this stuff. And, you know, if it's like I'm thinking, you know, when you're writing, if you're in a rehearsal studio, especially if you're a punk hardcore band, the singer can never hear themselves.
No,
Ever.
yeah, it's like not. That's not.
Ever.
You do not hear yourself at practice. Like the idea of hearing yourself is not. It's not a thing. No. You just don't. And so you're like, well, it's punk, you know?
Yeah, and that never changes, by the way. Never changes.
Once you get monitors, once you get like the little the wedges, you're like, what the hell is that? And it took us a second. We were like, what? Like monitors? What? No. And it now it varies by, you know, venue, how if you're really gonna hear yourself in those monitors. And again, if you're in a punk band, everything is screaming. You included, but you're lower than guitars and the drums and the bass and everything is just on top of you. So
So what was that like for you for the first time in the studio? You know, getting to hear your own voice. You know, that must have been pretty rad.
It was terrifying. I was so scared because I wanted to sound okay, you know, and I wanted to sound cool. Of course, everyone wants that, and I had been singing in my car alone and like yelling in my car alone to bands I liked for probably a couple years leading up until that point. But no one else had heard me. I was way too shy. And so when it came to the demo, there was a lot of like, I just didn't know what I was doing. It was like, you know, I was walking in the dark. I really had no idea. But it happened and everyone in the band at that time was like, wow, you sound really cool. And I remember Malachi and Cole were like, you sound like Ross from Ceremony. And I was like, yes, like I loved Ceremony. And I was like, that's like the vibe I was going for. And that was really cool. I was really terrified of sounding like just not cool.
So like, not cool. You don't want to sound like whatever the other side of Ross is. You don't want to be there.
So I was totally like, I hope I sound cool. And then when we first heard those, like, you know, the demos, the mixes, I was like, I don't know. And everyone was like, oh no, it's sick. And I was like, okay. Like, but now in hindsight, I look at it and I'm like, wow, so much has changed. I've learned so much. I really figured out so much more. I mean, I used to blow my voice out after one show and now it's much different, of course. And thank God, but God, what a time. Sometimes I miss it. Just the simplicity of everything.
Oh man. When we were doing like the first Bronx demos, I was so insecure and such a mess. Like just, you know, and you look back and you think about, you know, those recordings and especially the first recordings, the first kind of starting of the band. It's such a special time. But as an artist, you look back on it, right, with like, you look back on it fondly, but then you like you listen to it, you know, or you're kind of like, oh, you know, because there's always, especially it's crazy as a band too, because people, no matter what, like if you get past, you know, making the first record, like you guys have done, you're on to the second EP, you're going to go on to make another record. People will always hold on to the first record, and rightfully so. There's something very special about a band's first record, but sometimes when you look back on it as the artist, you're just like, oh my God, I'm so much better now.
So much I would have changed, you know, like I can't tell you how many lyrics I look back on. I'm like, did I really write that? Are you kidding me? Like, that is so corny. You know, like I look back, I'm like, wow. I had so much shit going on that now I'm like, I was mad about that, you know, but that's the cool thing about punk is it gives you that space to be mad about having to tie your shoes, you know, like it gives you the space to be like mad about anything and everything you want. And everyone relates because if you like punk, like you're pissed off about it too. So that's the cool part about it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's that first recording energy that they say where, you know, like you have your whole life to write your first record. And so like all of that emotion goes into it lyrically, vocally, all that stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's a really cool thing that way. When you guys finished that and it came time to, okay, we're a
Yeah.
band now, we've got music, we're going to play a show. What was your first time on stage like?
Oh man. Okay. So we put out our demo the same week we played our first show. We really gauged it well. When we decided to do this band, we were like, we're going to do everything right, or right to the standards that we had at the time, or like, if you play your first show, you got to have the music out, if you got to have the music out. So played that first show, demo was out. We opened for a band from San Diego called Therapy. Great band. It was a great show. I genuinely wish I could remember who else was on the lineup, but I do remember Therapy was like the band. It was their tour.
Yeah.
And it was a great first show. I look back on it with so much fondness because I had a couple of my, like a good handful of my friends were there and they had been listening to the demo. And there was moments where I like started forgetting lyrics and they started singing along, and it was very wholesome. Yeah. And the cool thing about it too is if I look back on like pictures and videos, I can see Bailey, who plays bass in the band now, was there in the crowd watching. And
no way.
Was like, Bailey was like so stoked on that demo and like actually was a fan of the band before even being a part of it. So that was a really cool little bit that just worked out. And it was just really sweet. One of my really good friends, she's a florist. She brought me flowers. It was so like adorable and positive. And I really thought I was going to throw up and die. And I was so terrified. And I was so scared. And I remember I was like, wow, this isn't even fun. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is literally not fun. I'm so scared. I hadn't played the show yet. And then when I did play the show, it was like getting off a roller coaster and just being like, I got to do it again, I guess. Like, yeah, we'll just see how long I can do this. Because what was that,
Yeah.
And so I would say the first show was really solid and really positive. Second show was our worst show ever. Just such a mess. We were playing the same little venue that's tiny that we booked our shows at the time. And we were playing with bands I really liked. And I think I forgot lyrics. I was going off time. Malachi fell off on like a breakdown. Cole was dropping his sticks. It was one of those, like, you walk off stage, you don't say anything to anyone.
Yeah.
So, but after that, it started to look up. So thank God we're here now.
That's good. Yeah, and if you're gonna have like a shitty show, obviously it's good to have them early on. But it's all good as long as everyone fucks up. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because if you're the only person who fucks up, everyone's mad at you, and you're like, damn, they're reconsidering me being here.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
That feeling, scary.
It's the worst feeling ever. Yeah. I've had it like once or twice. Yeah. There was we did one of our first tours was with the Circle Jerks and GBH, and
that's so cool.
It was so dope, and we were in. I'll never forget it. We were in Chicago, and I was experimenting with pre-show. Like cocktails. What was my mixture going to be? It was kind of still early on. Yeah. And I basically was on stage and I thought that I was like fucking Freddie Mercury.
No.
I thought I was like having the greatest show of my life, right? Like I just thought I was on fire. Yeah. And I got off the stage and the whole band is just pissed. And I'm like, what?
What did you do?
Fuck? Like, what the fuck happened? And they were like, dude, like you were like, I was on like a delay. Like I was like 3 seconds behind the band, like the whole set.
No.
The whole set.
That's so hard.
Yeah. And they were so mad. And then it was just like, oh, you just have to wear it. It was just like, oh no. And then I was just so bummed out the whole rest of the night. It was just like, oh, those moments are the worst.
Where was that show at?
It was at Chicago House of Blues.
Okay. Damn. Okay.
Yeah. It's always... and it ended too with Keith Morris throwing rocks at me in the alley too. Cause I remember he was joking, of course, but
just got Malachi invaded.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's, you got to get through it, I guess. Sometimes that's the worst though, when you really think you're crushing. and you're not. That happens at practice sometimes. Thank God it's practice, but God, that's the worst feeling.
Yeah. Truth be told, I was on a little bit of Xanax, so
there you go. There you go. Slowed you down a little.
I think that's where the delay came in.
Yeah. I mean, God forbid you got to try stuff. I figured out one time that I'm not supposed to be anything other than sober on stage, and then after I can go wild. But I had one moment, and it was it just mortified me beyond anything, where I was some White Claws in, and we're playing a gig, and it was probably in the last 6 months. I don't remember when. I think it was September, and we were playing that Sonic drive-through gig, and it was getting filmed by Hate 56, which is like this big this guy like films everything, and Sonny, and he's amazing, and he just, it's great, and it's a big deal, and everyone who plays in a hardcore band knows that feeling of like, oh, Hate 56 is here tonight, like we got to play really good because this is gonna go on YouTube and people are gonna watch it,
everything's gonna be mic'd, we're gonna be able to hear everything, you're gonna be able to, there's gonna be every angle. And I had a wardrobe malfunction, and I had a nip slip, and it was so mortifying, and just like I decided after that I'm never drinking before a set again, because I was like, I swear it was because of that. But you think they were connected?
Shit happen, and it's fine. It's okay. I just was so embarrassed, and I was like, this is punk. It's fine. Like it shit happens, but oh my God, never again.
There's that, but then you're right. Like there is a difference. There is a line when
I was so embarrassed.
I've had some embarrassing moments. That's the worst part about being on the stage for a living. It's so great being able to express yourself every night, play, record, live your dream. But there's certain nights on stage that something like some weird shit will just happen, or you're not your best, and it's tough to have people just be there for that.
You really don't want anyone to like those are just like really vulnerable moments, like whether you mess up your timing or a lyric, or you say something kind of stupid in between songs and you're like, why did I say that? I've totally done that. I actually learned the hard way, like not everyone reacts the same depending where you are, and especially like when you're in Europe or something, and you say stuff to them and they're like, what are you talking about? And it's crickets in the crowd. Whereas in America, if you say some stuff, like some crazy stuff on stage, people lose their minds. I definitely learned that the hard way, saying stupid crap, but it's just part of it. You live and you learn, and you hope that those 500 or 1,000 people, or however many, or 50 people, that they don't remember.
It's tough in the moment, it's tough in the moment, but like you said, it's all part, hopefully of a career mostly made of highlights. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So How Flowers Grow comes out in 2021. Amazing record.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And a huge record for you guys, obviously a breakout album. The record is really great, but it also kind of established you guys in what I think is a super smart move and a cool move. I think that your fans appreciate is it went beyond just a hardcore album, because there's songs like Seeds to Sow on there, which is my favorite on the record, that like shows like a little glimpse of like you guys going somewhere else or doing something different, and that's really exciting, for me. And then there's obviously more of that in the new EP, which is incredible. But when How Flowers Grow came out and it got the reaction it did, how was that for you guys as a band to like have a record out and people were noticing like pretty quick, people were noticing it was really cool. You guys started getting a little headway. What was that like for you guys?
It was a trip. I had no expectations, and when How Flowers Grow came out, I started doing, as soon as it came out, every day I would get off work and I'd come home and I'd do a podcast or an interview or, some sort of phone interview, zine, podcast, whatever, every day. And it did not stop for weeks. It was like what is going on? Like I had never experienced that level of being basically like being platformed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I never thought anyone would really be that interested. And so that was really confusing, but also really cool to experience. We had such a cool rollout with Flat Spot Records, which we had never done that before with our previous EPs or EP and demo. And so there was kind of all this stuff. There was a lot of press. There was a lot more attention. Reviews. We were getting talked about in hardcore world. And that was totally foreign. And it was kind of overwhelming at first for me because before I'm ever going to be happy about anything, I'm going to be freaking out.
Yeah.
Cause that's my brain, but I've figured it. I've learned how to navigate that. But yeah, it was kind of crazy and like totally foreign and weird. But it gave me a glimpse of like this opportunity to be living a life where I got to really focus on my art and my music and my creativity. And that's something I've always wanted for myself. I remember always saying as a teenager, like, I could be living in a car. I could be like eating out of trash cans, but as long as I'm making art, I'm happy. And so I kind of started to see those opportunities and we started to get tour offers and different people were kind of finding out about us who were my heroes. And that was really cool. And along with that came a lot of younger people who I saw myself in, like young, femme people, like young girls who were in the hardcore scene. And they were talking to me and telling me like, hey, you inspired me, like to wear a dress to a hardcore show or to, want to start my own band. Like, how did you do it? And I was like, I can't believe I'm in the position to be giving advice right now because I'm still figuring it out, but it was really cool. And I'm really grateful for that. And since that record came out and everything kind of started to explode like that, it really hasn't stopped. And now we're over a year following. And I'm just like, wow, like my world changed pretty fast. And that was really cool. Now I'm finally able to be like, to look at it, at a distance and be like, wow, that is so cool. I'm so proud of myself. I never thought I would have the ability to, make music, let alone like make music that had some of an impact on people who I saw myself in. And that was really beautiful and important to me. And then also the crazy stuff, like, Fred Durst found out about Scowl and then we got a Limp Bizkit tour offer and then we went on tour with Limp Bizkit and like stuff like that happening was just completely uncalled for. So cool, like nuts, like just didn't make sense. So I'm just learning to go day by day and just experience it, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. It totally does. And it's cool. I first saw you guys in Long Beach with Young Gov and
what a show.
Yeah. And that's Sam told me, he goes, yeah, dude, they're going on tour with Limp Bizkit. Yeah. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
but that's the thing that I love about you guys, and what I think is so important for bands as they're starting out is to establish it as like a, hey, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want to do.
Yeah.
We're going to write whatever kind of songs we want to write. We're going to play whatever kind of shows we want to play.
Yep.
And we're not going to be boxed in, because that's a tendency in punk and hardcore, especially, is to be like, hey, you got to sound like this. You got to look like this. And you got to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I love punk because I felt like it gave me that space to be, or punk and hardcore, it gave me that space to be whoever I wanted to be. And not this like, work a 9 to 5, get married, have kids, go to college, whatever, like have a career. Like that was not me. That never was me. I remember when I was in middle school and I was going through my little scene kid phases and my mom was kind of like, what are you doing? And I was like, whatever I want, And so punk and hardcore really gave me that space to do whatever I wanted. But I also figured out that just like any other work, like community within subculture or counterculture, there's still going to be that inevitable cool factor or like, you know, clickiness. And I totally see that in everything, and I recognize it, and I don't hate it or love it, you know, I just take note. And I've never been one to really have to conform or felt the need that I had to conform to that. And so being in hardcore for a little bit, I kind of started to realize I was like, I want to do a hardcore band, but I don't want it to be all black and white t-shirts and chain link fences and barbed wire and old English letters. I wanted like flowers and cute little things. And so we leaned into that. And that was like something that now in hindsight, like I realized like did kind of set us apart. And I'm like, wow, like that wasn't on purpose. I just liked it. And now it's like, it's a thing. And I'm really grateful that I did that, because I felt like I was seeing myself in it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's funny because people think it would be a lot easier to actually do than it is.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in an environment like that, even in a creative environment, and I think there's a reason why, you know, girls are coming up to you and you know, thanking you for being an inspiration and stuff, because even when you're in that type of environment, it's still really hard to stand up and be yourself and express yourself.
Yes.
You know, and it's like you are someone who's got no problem doing that, which is dope, because, you know, especially, you know, in hardcore, style in hardcore is generally pretty limited, you know. I'm just gonna say that, you know, and you know, whether it's, you know, fashion or whether it's vocal style or both, it's like when you have style, you generally stand out. But usually there's in subculture, sometimes there's a box on that too.
Yeah.
And what I love about your style is it always felt like it's more on the punk side to me because of just the way you are.
I mean,
and
I love punk.
Yeah, and it's really dope because it like it stands out, of course, but it's just another thing that makes the band unique. And for a woman in hardcore, a lot of times it feels like it's cool, of course, you know, everyone's allowed, but there's like a ceiling, like you can only go this far, you know what I mean? And I feel like you smashed through that ceiling.
That's so cool. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
and I appreciate everything you said, but I mean, that was the goal. There was definitely this underlying like goal I had with myself, because I was so frustrated that all the bands, like all the hardcore bands with girls in them or femme people, they never got to do the headline, you know? They were put on for sometimes, you know, but they never really got the same treatment, and that kind of pissed me off, to be honest. Like, because I was like, well, I don't want to be a novelty. I just want to be here. I just want to be participating. And I didn't get to choose my gender or my identity. And so why should that hold me back from participating and being looked at in the same lens as all these other bands, you know? And that really frustrated me for a long time. It still does sometimes, but I really appreciate hearing that, because I've made an effort to really like bust that wall down, because I just don't understand it. And it like just makes me angry. And I put a lot of that anger into the music, and I'm like proud of myself for doing that and not getting into petty stuff. Like, but we have to deal with that shit. We do sometimes. And I see other girls and femme people, you know, dealing with that stuff. And in hardcore, in a world where, you know, it's supposed to be accepting, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of work has been done, and I'm really, really grateful for the people who came before me, you know, bands like Punch and Walls of Jericho, and even like Crime Watch and Firewalker, like all these kind of like hardcore bands with like girls in them or femme people in them. Like they really they had to go through hell, you know, for a band like Scowl to now be in a position we're in. And I won't argue and be like, I didn't have to go through some crap, and I do have to go through some crap, but at the end of the day, it's improved a lot. It's gotten a lot better.
That's dope. And you're pushing it forward, which is even cooler, you know? Let's talk about the new EP, because it's incredible. And you have a new song dropping on February 8th, which is opening night.
Yes.
Okay. So New song, new EP. Let's get
Yeah.
into it a little bit. How excited are you guys to drop a new song?
Oh, so excited. I've been waiting. I've been like, I'm ready. Let's go. When? Like, I need people to hear this stuff, and I'm really proud of it. I have never felt this like proud of
Yeah, good.
music we've written, and I'm really proud of myself because I really put a lot into it, and I didn't hold back as much as I have previously. So it feels very vulnerable, but I'm excited.
Yeah, that's good. That's, that's kind of the artist pocket, right? Like
Yeah.
vulnerable, nervous, excited.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of, unfortunately, sometimes that's kind of where you want to be.
Yeah.
But you recorded with Will Yip, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about the recording process. How'd it go?
It was amazing. It was so cool. I admire Will's work, and I've been a fan of a lot of his like albums he's produced and worked on for a long time. So just being in Studio 4 and working with him and talking to him was just like the craziest thing ever. I was such a big fan. I couldn't believe I was like in that room. I was like, wow, like so many bands I admire have been here. And so that was cool. There was a level of like, wow, this is a big deal. And then working with Will was just a dream because Will is so encouraging, so positive, so creative. He, something maybe four people in a band might be arguing over, trying to make a decision with like a creative decision, or trying to understand how to structure a song, or something is just missing with this melody or whatever. Will was able to come in and be like, oh, here it is. Will was able to tweak it and make it so easy. I felt like I was hacking music working with him.
That's awesome.
Like everything I had felt previously, like insecure about recording vocals, insecure about, belting certain vocals or harmonizing or certain types of like, bends, like things like that. And lyrics. He just reminded me the whole process. He's like, you're doing great. Your shit rocks, dude. Like he's so positive, and it's very infectious. So that was a really cool feeling. And we only had 4 days to record that EP. We came in with like, I want to say like 8 or 9 songs. We ended up obviously doing 5, but the plan was to do about 4 or 5. And I recorded vocals in 1 day. We did pre-pro, which we had never done before also in recording. So that also changed the whole game, like being able to kind of work out my flow and my melodies and harmonies and stuff like that before ever laying down lyrics or actual, vocal recordings was such a game changer. And then it was also the first time we ever recorded to a click, which was like a game changer.
Yeah.
I wonder why. It was so helpful and it was so cool. And I feel like I just like learned so much in such a short span of time about making music. And I was like, wow. And I came out of that experience really like fully starting to believe, like, I think I am a musician now. Like, I don't play guitar. I don't play drums. I don't have that kind of ability, but I now feel confident. Like, yeah, I can write lyrics, vocals. I can come up with like a melody. I can help structure a song and really see it through. And I'm really proud of myself. I feel like it gave me so much confidence.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear because, as you go from recording to recording as a musician, there's always, you have those moments, those experiences that kind of unlock different levels for you, and especially as a lyricist, a singer, a writer, those moments are so profound and they're so exciting and they're so important. It's like little check marks along the way that kind of remind you that you're on the right path and that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So it's really, really cool. Did you guys go into the studio like with kind of skeletons written of the songs, or did you write them on the road? Because you guys toured like all last year.
So that's another thing is like, we really didn't have a lot of time to be writing last year. We literally wrote those songs, we had we had what I thought was 2 months of time after our like touring in summer and before we started touring in fall. But realistically, we had shows in between that and trips. So we really had like 3 weeks to write these songs.
Yeah.
We had been sitting on the ideas and the skeletons and like certain like riffs. And of course, I am always writing lyrics. So I had a lot of lyrics on deck that I would just, be putting into my notes app on my phone, things like that. I like to write poetry. I'm just like I do that as it sparks. And so when it came to like practicing and kind of writing together, we didn't have a ton of time, but we had a lot of prep, if that makes sense. Yeah. Our refrigerator was stocked full of all the veggies and the food. It was ready to be cooked. So that was very helpful. And luckily we're a very creatively driven band. I didn't realize not every band is always like sitting down, like coming up with ideas. Not every band is, and luckily me and Malachi, we live together. So he's on the couch writing, like playing guitar and writing stuff all day, every day. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, I can't stand it. No. And I'm always, maybe when I'm driving around, I have an idea. I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I'll pull it up on the voice memos and just hum it. Or just if a phrase gets into my head, I'm like, I gotta write that down, and it just happens like that. And I'm really grateful that we function that way. Cause I have seen that like experience of like, oh shit, we got to write music. Yeah, I guess we do. We haven't really had to deal with that yet, knock on wood.
Yeah, it's dope. And that's a good spot to be lyrically too, like always writing, having stuff in the notes. And because you're right, like that is, when you are stuck with a limited recording window and you don't have like the well to draw from that you want,
that's hard.
Along with the pressure of recording, you're also like kicking yourself in the head to being like, why the fuck weren't you prepared?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely lyrics that I wrote in studio because I was like, just like, certain stuff just didn't fit. Or there was like a whole song where I was like, I want to write this song. I want to sing this song, but it's just not the song. It's just not it. So I scrapped the whole thing. And there was one song on this EP where I was like, I can't get it.
Can't get it. Yeah.
And I remember being in the studio like, what is going on? Like what? Like, and I don't really get that writer's block feeling, but that one was like, I mean, I liked it, but not everyone else liked it. So I was like, okay, I guess there's a reason for that. I have to change that. And it worked out. Everything always works out. And having Will was just incredibly encouraging and incredibly helpful. So the whole experience was overall great. Do I want to record in that few of days again? No, but we can do it. So that was cool.
Yeah. That's dope. And the EP sounds incredible. Will did a great job. Your voice sounds incredible. You knocked it out of the park.
Thank you.
And the songs are great. They're elevated. It feels like a good push forward.
Yeah.
Opening Night is an awesome song. Psychic Dance Routine, best song on the EP for me. It's a incredible,
thank you,
incredible song. Are you got the new EP? Okay, you got Coachella coming up. Does Scowl worry about the haters at all?
Totally.
Are there?
Yeah, totally. We have to deal with it a lot, and I would say we're actually at a point now where we're finally starting to worry less. I try not to let people know, that they're getting under my skin. I learned that the hard way. And I've learned that I can't go out looking for it because that's just self-harm. It's just so like not fair to myself. But I do phrase it this way to my friends when I am kind of having a hard time with it. I tell them, I'm like, look, if you had a website you could go to whenever you wanted, and all you got to read was bad stuff said about you, lies, just assumptions, people projecting on you, people like sexualizing you, people doing all this stuff that you have no control over, it feels crappy, you would absolutely go and look at it whenever possible, because you want to know, right? Like humans, we want to know, we have to know what other humans around us are thinking of us and are thinking of our environments, because that's what tells us if something's safe or not. But the problem with it, and I had to do a lot of like self talk and a lot of like self like motivation to get off of looking at it, is I remembered to remind myself the problem with that is when you surround yourself with this like negativity and with only people saying you suck, you're weird, you're doing it wrong, you this, that, whatever, you start to believe that everyone thinks that, everyone in your world thinks that. And that's just not true.
No.
But psychologically, that's what happens. And so I had to really like snap out of that, because it was starting to keep me up at night, and it was really like kind of freezing me. It was causing me to be afraid to make moves and to take risks. And I have always been a risk taker. So that was kind of a wake up call to be like, yeah, this is making me a person that I am not, and I can no longer participate. So I've made an effort to get off of that wave of kind of checking the YouTube comments and looking at, there's some websites where you can really see some crappy stuff. And, I actually I've taken a step back even from like Twitter and Instagram, and I can't look at my message requests. I can't look at Twitter too much, because I might see something I don't want to read. And it's not always even just like haters. It's also like, I mean, I don't want to feel bad for myself here. I'm really proud of myself. I'm giving myself like a lot of credit right now, but it's also sometimes stuff that is just like, unfortunately, like specifically directed at my gender or my identity, or like, men kind of suck sometimes. Like they just say crazy
just
shit.
Go ahead and say it.
Yeah. And it's, I try really hard to be very positive and very, like not pay attention to that. But I've read some stuff where I'm just like appalled. I'm just like, you posted that on the internet? What is wrong with you? Like, what? Like, get help. Like, oh my God. Like, and then, and it's like in the message requests, like sometimes it just feels inescapable. So what I've learned for me personally is I just limit my time. I make an effort to talk to the people who are real, talk to the people I know. If I need to be uplifted, I'm going to reach out and ask for that from the people around me. And then within the band, some of them find it funny. Not the stuff that happens to me, of course, but sometimes they find like, when someone's saying some crazy stuff about the band, they find it funny. And I just made an effort to set a boundary. Like, hey, you guys joke about that, send the screenshots to each other. Leave me out of it. Don't show me. Yeah. Don't tell me. I am too fragile. I'm not meant for it. I don't need to know. And I'm actually happier that way. So yeah, we've really learned to deal with it and like take it in stride though, because we're doing some stuff that like is just not something a hardcore band does. Hardcore bands don't play Coachella. They don't tour with Limp Bizkit. They don't, do collaborations with big brands and things like that. And we've had these opportunities and we've taken them because we're excited and we want to see where that goes. Does that make us any less of a hardcore band? Absolutely not. But to some people's standards, it might. And that's okay. They don't have to listen to Scowl. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So. I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
You guys are going out on tour here shortly with Show Me the Body, who's another awesome band.
Yeah.
Their latest record is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
You got Jesus Peace, Zulu on there, Trippy Jones as well.
Mm-hmm.
Scowl is awesome live. What makes a good show to you? And like, what do you think are the components of like a good front man, front woman?
That's such a good question. I love that. I mean, live music is why we're all here, right? If I wasn't playing in a band, I would still be just as in love with it. And the things that keep me coming back and the things that keep it addicting, and give me that high are the shows where, of course, like that front person is making you feel like you're on the stage with them. they give you that opportunity to interact. And then they also give you the opportunity to really, like, within a second's notice, you feel like you're on stage, and then you're right back in the crowd and you're experiencing all this energy. You know, I don't exactly know how to explain that vibe with words. But I look back on the shows that really did change my life. And I always remember, like, you know, those front people giving me that kind of visceral experience. And then, of course, also when, you know, punk and hardcore is pretty stripped down. Like, you've got someone on stage just going absolutely ballistic into a microphone probably, but they're not going to have special lighting. There's no haze. There's no fog machines. You know, there's people jumping on top of you, kicking you in the face. Like, that is such a special experience. And that is, like, to me, like, number one most important and most special live show experience. But I will also say, when I know that someone is putting their all into the details of their performance, so, like, yeah, the lighting, the backgrounds, the, you know, the set list, like the way that it goes from, like, peaks and valleys. Like, touring with Limp Bizkit was really cool because there were these moments where it was, like, really big, explosive, like, oh, they're playing break stuff, this is the song, right?
Yeah.
And then they'd do, like, a cover, or they'd play a slower song, and it would feel almost like a comedy show because you'd be so focused on what Fred was saying and doing. And then next thing you know, you get punched in the face again. And I remember that with you guys too. I felt like touring with you guys was so cool because it really set an example of those peaks and valleys. That's a really big deal to me. And moving forward with this EP we have, you know, we're going to now be playing songs that are a bit softer and more ballady. And then we're going to play songs that punch you in the face. And that awesome. To me is really important, is being able to, like, curate the right set list so that everyone's like right on the precipice, and then it explodes, you know?
When you start introducing, like, dynamics into the set list, it gets really interesting, and it gets a little scary too, you know?
It's so vulnerable. Like, it's scary because you're like, you have to commit to your own performance. And that feels weird because you never thought you'd have to do that playing in a punk band. Yeah. I never thought that playing in a hardcore punk band that I would one day be doing vocal warm-ups before getting on stage. Yeah. And now that's part of it. And that's not part of my performance, but it's part of my performance going well. Yeah. You know, and a long time ago, I would have thought, like, that's weird. Why would I do that? You know? The punk thing to do is to just sound crazy.
Vocal warm-ups are very unpunk, but it's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, are you worried about how punk you are, or are you worried about, you know, singing like shit? And some people don't have to warm up. It's all good. Like, for me, it's a case by case situation, but for the most part, I usually always warm up, because it, like, at the very least, it lets me know, like, where my voice is at. Like, okay, this is going to be a hard show to sing, or this is going to be, I'm feeling good, I'm in the zone, this is going to be all right. You know, like, it's a good way to kind of meter where you're at.
Absolutely.
But that's really cool. And that tour is going to be, you know, massive. I think I'm excited. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm super stoked for everything you guys got coming down the pipeline this year.
Thank you.
The new EP comes out April 7th. Correct? I think April 7th.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
It does. It's so Psychic Gadgeting out April 7th. You know, you can follow Scowl's socials to get tickets for the concert, all that stuff. You know, really appreciate you being on the podcast, Kat. Yeah. One last question for you. I ask it of everybody. What to you is the meaning of life?
Oh shit. That's a big question, but I would say having fun and doing badass shit with your friends. It sounds so silly, but just...
That's the truth.
That's so important. I don't care. Like, you know, if you're working a crappy job all day, at least, like, look forward to getting off work and going and doing something fun, going and doing the things that really matter to you, you know?
Awesome, Kat. Awesome. It was a pleasure talking to you. Good catching up.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Yeah. And tell Malachi I said, what's up?
Yeah.
And,
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. That's a wrap on episode 55 of the Sailor Jerry podcast. As always, huge amounts of respect and gratitude to our guest, the one and only Kat Moss of Scowl. Kat, thank you very much for your time. It was awesome rapping with you about music and life. You can follow Kat at 8legged baby on Instagram, and you can follow Scowl at Scowl40831 on Instagram as well. Of course, you should be following me, 213 Mattman. You should be following Sailor Jerry, and you should already know this by now, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate everyone's time this week. It's always great having a little moment to make these podcasts and get to share them with our listeners out there. So we appreciate you guys. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, please leave a comment. And above all else, don't forget that Sailor Jerry Spice Drum is still made the old school way, 92 proof, bold and smooth as hell. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace.